40s. You know, he was a kid. He was like 12, 13 years old. So I just want you guys to be aware of that, that God took a 12-year-old or 13-year-old to change history. I mean, it's an amazing thing. So
and this is a very good point, because David was just being faithful in the task at hand. And that's exactly what he continues to do. He continues to be obedient in every facet, right from tending sheep, to coming in and playing the harp for the king with a distressing spirit, to being the armor bearer of the king, to going to war, to stepping up with Goliath and the Palestinians, or the Philistines. And all she did was just be faithful in the task that was at hand. He didn't try to do anything but be obedient. And God just kept flipping it. And before you know it, David is got the whole 12 tribes of Israel calling his name out to be the king. Right? That's in a minute. All right? So I just wanted to bring us to that point and recap what we went through last time. This is at a spot where it's coming to the end of King Saul's reign because of his pride. God's taking his favor off of him and is starting to put it onto David. And neither one of them even know it right now. Okay? So let's turn to 17, 1 Samuel 17. And we're going to start. Who wants to read? Anybody want to read? A little bit? No? Kayla? I was going to give you anyway. Anyway, you're going to start in 26, and I want you to read.
Start in 26?
Chapter 17, verse 26. Or no, you know what? You can start in 33. No, go from 26 to 33.
We're passing David and Goliath.
I'm just going to give you an overview of that, okay? Because we all know that story, all right? All right, I'm just going to give you an overview of what's happening, okay? This is when Saul and his army are in the valley, and the Philistines are mocking the army of God. And because of the state of Saul and his pride, the whole army is affected on it. The whole people of Israel is affected from it. And does anybody, they're all cowering. The whole army of Saul is cowering in the rocky cliffs. And there's a Philistine called Goliath who was like 12 feet tall, whatever it was. And he's mocking the army of God. And they're just cowering in the rocks, total cowards. And here comes David. David shows up, and he sees what's going on, and this is where Kayla's going to pick up, all right? 26. Read that nice and loud so everybody can hear it.
No, don't put me on camera.
Too late, you're on.
David asked the men standing near him, "What will be done for this man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" They repeated to him what they had been saying and told him, "This is what will be done for the man who kills him." When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, "Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the desert? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is, and you came down only to watch the battle. Now what have I done?" said David. "Can I even speak?" He then turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter, and the men answered him as before. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a boy, and he has been a fighting man from his youth."
What's that? All right, so I just want to ask a question. Why do you think Saul and his army were so afraid and David was not? Remember what we're studying. you'll see in a second, because Kayla's going to continue to read a little bit more, how David gives God the glory and knows that God's going to go before them. Are you guys listening to me? Yeah? Okay. So, let's start at verse 33 and go down to 40. If you don't mind.
33, 40.
33 to 40.
I already read 33. Let me read it again.
Ready to go.
Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a boy, and he has been a fighting man from his youth." But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by the hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of the Philistine."
Okay, stop there for a second. Okay, now do you see, now this sounds like a prideful man, right? Because he smote a lion, he smote a bear, and he's going to smite this Philistine. But what is the difference between him and Saul here? Exactly. He said, "The Lord your God is going to deliver me and you into my hands." It's not going to be by his power. He already recognizes that God already won the battle for him. You know, he's not doing anything on, and even though he's confident and he sounds prideful, he's still giving God all the glory, which is a major facet of humility. Okay, there's so many different facets of humility, and you just got to start to recognize each one individually. Right? So Saul clothed David. This is another. See, I want you to start to recognize, everybody, I want you to also start to recognize the different traits of humility and the different traits of pride, because they're both living. Pride is a spirit. You know, it's not just something that you hear about, talk about, or just come across. It's a spirit that's going to try to infiltrate you all the time. Especially, like I said before, up there on the stage, on this camera, when you see yourself on YouTube, and you're talking, or you're reading, or you're, you know, whatever the case may be. Pride is going to start to try to come after you. You know, it's a spirit. It's not just a word. It's something that continues, and I'll show you this in the next couple of chapters, how it continually, King Saul is brought down to a place of reconciliation, and within a half a chapter, the spirit of pride comes in and makes him completely change back again and again and again. All right, and a lot of people fail to realize that it's just not a one-time thing. You might be attacked or fall to the spirit of pride on one occasion, and get reconciled and confront that spirit and you know, make peace. But a month down the road, he comes back and tries to get you again. All right, I want you to remember that. All right, so Saul called David. This is just another different facet of humility that David exercises when Saul saying, "Okay, you can go up against the Philistine." This is where David says, "I want to go up against the Philistine,